gentle, and mounted on a donkey, even on a colt, the foal of a beast of burden. And the disciples went and did just as Jesus had directed them, and brought the donkey and the colt, and laid on them their garments on which he sat. And most of the multitude spread their garments in the road, and others were cutting branches from the trees and spreading them in the road. And the multitudes going before him, and those who followed after, were crying out, saying, Hosanna to the Son of David! Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord! Hosanna in the highest! Have you heard that lately? That's Psalm 18. Jesus is riding into Jerusalem on the donkey, and they're crying out, Hosanna in the highest. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. They know the song. They've probably already been singing it. The Passover is coming. If they haven't, they're singing it now because they're going to be singing it as part of the Passover itself. This song that gives praise to God for who he is. Now look over in Luke 19. It's a parallel passage of this. It means that it's talking about the same incident, but he records just a little bit more, and I want us to see Jesus' response when some of the Pharisees, the chief priests, don't like what's happening. They hear these people singing the song and having reference to Jesus. And so they say something to Jesus about it. So in Luke chapter 19, this story starts in verse 28, but we'll pick it back up in verse 38, where they're saying this. Saying, Blessed is the King who comes in the name of the Lord, peace in heaven and glory in the highest. And some of the Pharisees and the multitude said to him, Teacher, rebuke your disciples. And he answered and said, I tell you, if these become silent, the stones will cry out. And when he approached, he saw the city and wept over it. If you had known in this day, even you, the things which make for peace, but now they have been hidden from your eyes. For the days shall come upon you when your enemies will throw up a bank before you and surround you and hem you in on every side, and will level you to the ground and your children within you, and they will not leave you one stone upon another, because you did not recognize the time of your visitation. This, coming from Psalm 18, and Jesus brings stones into it. Have you ever thought about that statement? If they don't say it, the stones will. And then he turns right around and talks about the stones of the temple. Who is the chief cornerstone of the temple? Jesus is. Because what is the temple today? Jesus says in Matthew chapter 24, beginning the chapter, when they're showing him the temple and all the buildings surrounding it and saying, look, have you noticed the splendor of this? Have you seen the majesty of this? And he said, I tell you, there won't be one stone left upon another. You tear this one down and I will rebuild it in 3 days, Jesus also said. They marveled that he would say such a thing because they thought he was talking about the physical temple itself. Jesus did build a temple in 3 days. He began the house of God anew, never for it to be built again as a physical one, but in us as a spiritual one. If these don't cry out, the stones will. That, I think we can take literally. But what about figuratively of us? In 1 Peter chapter 2, First Peter chapter 2. I want to start in verse 1. He says, Therefore, putting aside all malice and all guile and hypocrisy and envy and all slander, like newborn babes long for the pure milk of the word. I'm in 1 Peter 2. Still hear some pages turning, and that's great. Verse 3. If you have tasted the kindness of the Lord, and coming to him as to a living stone, rejected by men, but choice and precious in the sight of God, you also as living stones. You also as living stones are being built up as a spiritual house for a holy priesthood to offer up spiritual sacrifices acceptable to God through Jesus Christ. For this is contained in Scripture, Behold, I lay in Zion a choice stone, a precious cornerstone, and he who believes in him shall not be disappointed. This precious value then is for you who believe. But for those who disbelieve, the stone which the builders rejected, this became the very cornerstone, and a stone of stumbling and a rock of offense, for they stumble because they are disobedient to the word, and to this doom they were also appointed. You as living stones. Now the question may be, do you fit? Depending upon where this one is sitting within a wall, you can make this fit to some degree, but if it's touching other stones that are around it, and these are fairly uniform, but you don't always have that, especially when you're talking about people. Right? And so sometimes you have to make it right. So maybe this shouldn't be here, you think? This right here? That may get in the way. So maybe we need to take care of that. You as living stones. Sometimes you have to get rid of something. Something that's not going to fit in the building of God. When we try to keep it, it doesn't work right. What are we hanging on to? What is it that we're hanging on to that keeps us from fitting the way we're supposed to fit? That looks better, doesn't it? Fits a little bit better. It still needs some work. So do I. How about you? It's not easy. Sometimes people can hear it when it's happening to us. If the praise team wants to come on up, you guys can. Jesus was a stone that was rejected. Those who were building upon the building of God said, no, not him. Not that stone. That's not what we need. That doesn't fit within our plan. Sometimes we may feel rejected. And there's a story that has been told time and time again of a stone that's been rejected and yet became the chief cornerstone. And the true story is Jesus Christ. And we recognize the story in so many other stories. The one that's downtrodden, the one that's considered no good by everybody else. That's the one. And we love that story because people buy it, people read it, people watch it in movies over and over again. Why do we love that story so much? Maybe it's because we can relate. Because we feel that at times. So did